All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an idea that is, well, it's pretty profound, and it might just change how you look at pretty much everything. It's called the Self-Organization Substrate Principle. And what if I told you it suggests there's a hidden grammar, a set of rules, that connects everything from the tiniest particles to our entire society?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, let's start with a puzzle. A puzzle that kind of spans the entire universe. Think about the biggest scale you can possibly imagine. You've got galaxies, right? These gigantic, complex systems. They have clear boundaries, they have internal structures like stars and planets, and they all interact through gravity. Okay, now let's flip the script and zoom all the way in down to a single living cell. What do you see? You see another system with a boundary, with internal structures, the organelles, all interacting through chemical signals. And somehow, that pattern feels eerily familiar, right? And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. Think about something like a company or even a government. You've got the same deal, a bounded system with different parts, like departments, all interacting through things like emails and contracts. It's the same basic blueprint again. So that's the big mystery, isn't it? Why do we see these same structural patterns pop up over and over again at every single scale, from the subatomic all the way to the social? Is this all just one massive coincidence, or is something deeper going on? Well, to get to the bottom of this, the theory we're looking at today suggests that maybe, just maybe, for centuries, we've been asking the completely wrong question. Now, this slide is really interesting because it's all about a huge shift in perspective. You see, the old question basically treats life like this magical accident, something that just kind of pops out of dead stuff. But the deeper question completely reframes it. It asks, what if the potential for life, the very blueprint for organization, was already baked into the rules of physics from the very beginning? And this is really the core insight. Think about it. If the universe was just a formless, chaotic soup of energy at its most fundamental level, then how could stable, complex things like you and me ever reliably come into being? It just wouldn't happen. There has to be some kind of rule book, right? A grammar that allows energy and matter to build themselves into structure. Okay, so what is this grammar? This brings us to the core idea we're talking about today, the Self-Organization Substrate Principle. And here it is. This is the big claim. The principle basically argues that the fundamental rules of our universe, the stuff we see in quantum physics, don't just describe the tiniest things. They provide a kind of template, a reusable grammar for organization that gets copied and adapted as you build bigger and more complex things. And this is absolutely key. You have to get this part. Look, nobody's saying a living cell is a quantum particle, like a fermion. That's not the point. The point is that within the bigger system of an organism, a cell plays a fermion-like role. It has a distinct, separate identity. It's the role, the function that gets copied up the chain, not the physical object itself. Okay, so if reality has a grammar, what are the words? What are the basic rules? Let's break down 3 of the most crucial ones that seem to appear everywhere. This table really lays it all out. First, for any complex system to exist, you need a way to make things with distinct identities, like a fermion in physics or a cell in biology. Second, those things have got to interact with each other. They need mediators, like a boson carrying a force or a hormone carrying a message. And third, they need a way to stick together to build bigger things, like the strong force that glues quarks together or a legal contract that binds 2 companies. So think about it. As you scale up from atoms to molecules to people to societies, most of the tiny little details get blurred out. They don't matter as much. But this core functional grammar, the rules for identity, interaction, and binding, it survives. It makes it through the scaling up process. Physicists have a fancy term for this. They call it coarse graining, but it's really just about zooming out. And this right here, this is the engine that drives all of complexity. Once you have a stable, complete atom, it becomes a single building block that a molecule can use. Once you have a stable, complete cell, it becomes a single building block that an organ can use. Each level uses the finished product of the level below it as a new single thing. It's like cosmic Legos. Okay, so this is all really cool, but you might be thinking, so what? Why does any of this matter? Well, this is where it gets really practical, because this grammar gives us a powerful new way to understand why complex systems succeed and why they fail. Because when you start looking at big problems through this grammar lens, they suddenly start to click. They're not just random breakdowns, they're failures of a specific rule.
What is cancer? It's a failure of cell identity. A hormone disorder? That's a failure of the mediators that allow for interaction. A broken contract? That's a failure of social binding. Uncontrolled growth is a failure of the gates that are supposed to regulate things.
So here's the real takeaway. By understanding this fundamental grammar of how things organize themselves, we might actually be able to design better, more resilient systems. And this is a huge deal, especially as we're building things like complex AI. We need to make sure it has clear rules for identity and interaction, so it doesn't become chaotic. And this leads to one last pretty mind-bending thought about, well, us. This idea suggests that our consciousness, our ability to even observe and think about the universe, isn't some weird fluke that got tacked on top of physics by accident. Instead, what if being an observer is the ultimate expression of this organizational grammar? A super high-level, complex loop that's built from the exact same fundamental rules of identity, interaction, and binding that have been woven into the fabric of reality from the very beginning. It reframes the whole mystery, suggesting that the potential for us was written into the rules from day one.